Oh, I'm hyped. Look at that intro. Big shout out to our producer, KJ Kenny, for getting this set up for us. Welcome, everybody, to the Carousel, the #1 podcast for all the latest news, scoop, rumors, and everything else that has to do with the college basketball coaching carousel. I'm Adam Gordon, along with Brian Burton of All Access Network. And before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by Lucio Sports. Lucio Sports integrates everything you do with your athletes, with your coaching staff, and puts it together in their suite of apps that's available on the App Store. If you sign up for Rising Coaches today at risingcoaches.com, you'll get a free license to all of their apps, which allows you to do everything from virtual playbooks, animations, and much, much more. So check out our friends at luciosports.com, and let's get into it. Before we get started, I do want to make sure everyone understands, our intent and mission behind this podcast. We're not here to celebrate people getting fired. We're not going to be predicting who's going to get fired. We're simply here to talk about the jobs that are currently open. We're not doing any kind of hot seat.
Yeah, no, and if you're in this business long enough, you're probably going to experience getting fired. So not a great experience to go through. So definitely want to be here to provide some positive information and just kind of share to scoop of what's out there, so you don't have to necessarily be in the who's who to always know what's going on.
Yeah, we want this to be interactive, so please comment on social media, shoot us a DM, or you can text us anonymously at the number below, 662-418-9031, with any scoop or info that that maybe you want to put out there, but you don't want your name associated with it. And then finally, why us? Why is it me and Brian on here talking about all this? We don't have all the answers. We're not the most connected fans in the world. We just don't coach anymore. So we really don't give a fuck. So we're able to talk freely and just speak openly. So Brian, let's get into it, man. Start us off.
Yeah, and at 12:15, we'll be bringing in Kevin Sweeney from College Basketball Central and Sports Illustrated. He'll be talking about Penn State, Northern Illinois, and Fordham. So, we'll just start out with Boston College. Jim Christian is no longer the head coach. A job that's looked at as maybe the 15th best job within that league, if I'm not mistaken, based on the stadium chain of command that they came out with. So not necessarily a top-rated job was in that league, but it's a BCS job, and you can win there. Al Skinner was the last person to win there. He was there 13 seasons, 7 NCAAs, 1 NIT, had a great run that he went on. So Mark Smith's a name, Dennis Gates is a name, James Jones are a few of the names that are mentioned. Mark Smith just won a championship at St. Bonaventure, has done an incredible job there. 2 NCAAs in 14 years, 1 NIT. Dennis Gates, back-to-back Coach of the Year in the Horizon. He just won the league co-championship at the Horizon this year. And then James Jones, Yale, 22 years. Yale's winningest coach ever. Those are 3 of the names that have been mentioned. I'll let Adam kind of talk about some of the others.
Yeah, and all 3 of those guys are great candidates, and I've certainly heard those guys, names swirling around as well. I think they're getting ready to start interviews here shortly in the next week or two. Another guy that, has ties to Pat Kraft, the AD at Boston College, is Porter Moser. Obviously, he's done a great job at Loyola over his last 10 years, and especially the last 4 years, starting with their Final Four run and, set to win the league again. It always helps when you have that great season and you're in the year you're trying to make a move. Not that he's trying to make a move, but he's certainly a hot name again because of their success this season. Another guy you got to look at Bill Cohen at Northeastern. Yep. He was obviously there with Al Skinner for all the success that they had, moved on to Northeastern. He's been there 15 years now, which is crazy. I'm getting old. Time flies. But he's done a great job. They're always contenders in the CAA. He's been to 2 NCAA tournaments, 4 regular season titles. So, another guy that is a proven winner and has won there specifically.
Yeah, and I think, a couple other names. Kevin Willard, a name that kind of gets mentioned from Seton Hall with what he's done there. I don't know if this is the fit for him to leave Seton Hall. He's had so much success there, 5 straight NCAAs, 11 seasons. But he's always definitely a name to mention. But Howard Isley's kind of maybe a dark horse name. He played there, probably the best pro, arguably, that played at Boston College. Assistant at Michigan, they're having an incredible season. So, bringing one of your own back home, like Juwan Howard got to go back to Michigan. Maybe that's the storybook story to kind of get them going again in the ACC.
Yeah, great stuff. Again, please feel free to drop in comments, text us anonymously with any names that you've heard. We'll try to share stuff that's appropriate. And the next job we'll get into is Albany.
I got one. I got two more I heard on Boston College, kind of outliers. Yeah. So John Beeline's always the name that's thrown around. Was really successful. Don't know if that's the job he'll come back to college basketball in. And then associate head coach at Baylor, Jerome Tang's name has been mentioned as well, which is kind of recent. I don't know if it's just because they've had enormous success. It's not necessarily a recruiting connection thing, but because the schools are private schools, they kind of built Baylor from, just as low as you could possibly be at the high major level to being number one in the country. So he's been a part of that. He was voted recently number one, assistant in that conference. Everyone knows it's his time to probably get one of these jobs. But Boston College, his name has been mentioned. So credit to Jerome Tang for getting in that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And John Beeline's one. You'll probably hear his name for every job that's open this year.
No doubt.
Although Boston College kind of seems like it might make sense. It's not, like you said, it's not, an ACC powerhouse, but it is a very high academic school.
Right.
Where I could see him being able to, he's always been known for high IQ teams and, not that always plays hand in hand with high academic, but there's that tie in there as well.
Right. The skill level and the IQ, the way that he coaches would be good. And then going back to Jerome Tang, I think he's one of those guys that can recruit anywhere, can recruit national. He's been at a private school. So, yeah, those could be some outside outlier fits.
Absolutely. Okay, staying in the Northeast, we're going to talk a little bit about Albany from the America East Conference. This is a head scratcher for me. Will Brown did a heck of a job there. Now, I know he was there 20 years, and sometimes you can just be at a place too long, and I think that's what happened here. But he went to 5 NCAA tournaments at Albany.
Right.
I think this is going to be a case of, you don't know what you got till it's gone. But, Brian, who have you heard for this one?
Yeah, so one of these jobs is actually regarded as a top job in the league, one of the top 3 or so jobs looked at. Desmond Oliver's name's been mentioned from Tennessee, has some ties to that area, has been in a lot of jobs in that area. Obviously, Tennessee's had enormous success. That speaks for itself. His name has been mentioned. Kyle Neptune in Villanova, again, more success as an assistant, has ties to that area. Dwayne Killings, Marquette's had some success. Stan Johnson's doing extremely well out of the Wojo tree, so his name's been mentioned. Brandon Knight, really good player at Pitt. Rutgers is having a really good season. And then Tobin Anderson, kind of a outlier Division II coach in the local area that's had a ton of success. Those are some of the names that have been mentioned that I've heard. Yeah,
those are great. That's a great list. I haven't heard anything on this. I'm just going to throw out 2 random names that I would, be looking into.
Yeah.
First of all, Jim Ferry at Penn State. I don't think they'll go that route because it's another, he's in the same mold as Will Brown, an older white dude that's fiery. Great coach, both of them. But obviously Jim had great success at LIU Brooklyn before moving on from there. He's proven he can win in that area. I'd be on the phone right away with Kevin Sutton at Rhode Island. I think Kevin's big time. He's had great success as a head coach at various, powerhouse nationally ranked high school programs. And he's paid his dues, at the Division I level now for probably close to 15 years. I think it's time for Kevin to get a chance. But again, that's not stuff that I'm hearing. That's just, me throwing names out there.
Yeah, and I kind of heard this comparison. This job, and both these coaches are good, so I want to make sure this sounds right. So Scott Cross, the all-time winningest head coach at UT Arlington, kind of had a time period where he left UT Arlington. And everybody's like, wait a minute, this guy's so successful, similar to what you're saying. But then the AD kind of wanted to hire the new flashy high major assistant, coming from Texas Tech. Ogden's done a great job, got coach of the year right away. It seems like Albany kind of wants to go for that splash hire, the high major assistant that kind of has this resume. So we'll see what they do, but that's kind of what we're hearing.
I don't like it, Brian. I don't know the situation. I'm just an outsider. There's no telling what's going on there, but I don't like it. Will Brown did a heck of a job.
I agree. And a lot of people, I'm from Texas, so a lot of people didn't like it when Scott Cross was let go. He was a beloved and did an enormously unbelievable job there. And now he's at Troy as the head coach. But these things happen. I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot of things we don't like on here.
No question. All right, what's next, Brian?
Let's go Denver real quick.
You're switching it. You're going out of order. You're switching me up. No problem. I can roll with this.
Going out of order a little bit. I'll let you kind of talk some of the names you've heard. I want to throw this name out there. I've heard it just a little bit recently, as recent as this morning and last night. But Carlin Hartman at Oklahoma is a really, really respected guy from who he is as a person, right? As good as it gets. But he fits because Denver is it's regarded as one of the top jobs in the league. Believe it or not, it's the top 2 or 3 job, again, kind of like Albany. But it is an academic school, which most people don't actually know that. It has a pretty high academic standard. He's been at Rice. He's been at Columbia. Lon Kruger's had a great, successful tree with Henson and the late Lou Hill, who's phenomenal, who's no longer with us. Did a great job at UTRGV. So Carlin Hartman, I think, would be somebody who could go into Denver right away and recruit high academic JUCOs, could recruit high academic high school, could get some international. Because I think you have to be creative there to really be able to kind of keep that as a job that can be a competitive year in and year out. So without further ado, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, I don't know about it being the number 2 job in the league. Like, I've been at Denver. I've played against Denver a few times.
Right.
And so I know these publications put these lists out there, but like I strongly challenge that one.
So on paper, a couple of things it's supposedly good about. Recruiting base is one of the best. Selling pros, facilities, their budget is really good. Their number 2
recruiting base. Colorado is not like a hotbed for mid-major talent.
For that league, though, the recruiting bases in that league aren't great. This is just what they say. I'm not the one who made this. Their budget is supposed to be number 2 in the league, and their buy games are supposed to be number 1. So that gives you a chance to win if you have budget and you can get buy games. So anyway.
For sure. Yeah, budget and buy games is a big deal. But I still strongly challenge. I throw the challenge flag at the number 2.
Right. So they're last, just so you know, they're last in history and tradition, if that makes you feel better.
Yeah. I feel good regardless. I've been there.
Right.
But yeah, the name that I've heard, floating around this one is our friend Adam Cohen, associate head coach at Stanford.
Yep.
He'd be great. Obviously, he's been at high academic institutions his whole career, from obviously Stanford, Vanderbilt, Harvard, Rice. And I just got a text, by the way, that Denver, they care only about hockey and lacrosse. So someone else coming in and agreeing.
I believe that. But if you have money, though, most coaches, if you can pay your assistants and you have recruiting money and you have money in your budget, that's a huge part of, and it's a great location.
No doubt.
So I think that's a huge part of what coaches care about. For whatever it's worth.
We all know you live in Colorado and you're trying to pump it up. So, but yeah, Adam Cohen would be great. If I'm the AD, I'm jumping on the phone with Larry Shyatt and trying to pull him out of retirement. I don't know that he would do it, but obviously he's been super successful at Wyoming, which is just down the road, really. And get him for a couple years. I know he's been wanting to pass a program on to his son Jeremy, who's fantastic. He can certainly come in and energize a program. I don't know if he'd do it or not, but it'd be worth a phone call, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, any of those guys, like, I don't know if they're going to try to go more with a head coach that's maybe proven at a little bit lower level, whether it's D2 or maybe another regional school that's Division I that maybe not have as many things to offer. If they're going to try to get a proven head coach, or if they're going to go high major assistant, kind of in that. It feels like they're going to probably go more high major assistant, but it'll be interesting to see what they do there.
All right, let's bring in our guest, Brian. Why don't you introduce?
Easy one to intro. Kevin Sweeney, Northwestern Wildcat, college basketball central. There's not a whole lot this guy doesn't know. about college basketball, whether it's recruiting, job stuff, winning games, history. He's definitely a wealth of knowledge. So, and just recently joined the SI team. So we're excited to have Kevin Sweeney in the building.
Yeah, Kevin, welcome.
I think you might be on mute.
You're muted.
I was muted, as always. The Zoom problems come to solve the year.
Hey, at least you can't blame me this time. Kevin's my teammate on Coast to Coast on All Access. You can't blame me this time.
No, not your fault. It's just all on me. But no, happy to be here. Crazy time of year, but love talking about the business. So let's dive in. Whatever you got for him.
Let's start off with Penn State. Let's jump right into the good stuff.
Let's do it.
Yeah, just anything you're hearing on Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, I've heard they want to move quick, right? I mean, this is a situation where Pat Chambers, I don't remember the official wording, whether it was fired or, asked to step down, resigned, whatever. It wasn't pretty regardless. They had an interim deal for this year, and they have been pretty good, and they have some talent on the roster. I believe, there is I think there's enough talent here, and I think the administration wants to do their best to keep that in the fold. So they're going to move quickly, and they've already been doing some work behind the scenes throughout the season. One name that I've heard a lot connected here is Micah Shrewsbury. He's the associate head coach, I believe, at Purdue. He's definitely on Painter's staff, no matter what his job title is. Was also on staff with the Celtics under Brad Stevens. Really, connected in that region. Obviously, to have guys like Brad Stevens and Matt Painter in your corner really helps you. When you're getting a job like this, really sharp offensive mind coordinates their offense. So, I think a guy who obviously it's a risk to go assistant to a head coach at the high major level. You don't see it a lot. Obviously, some Duke guys have gotten it done, but it's somewhat of a rare path. But he's a guy that I'm definitely watching there. I think I would say he's probably the favorite at this point. Obviously, a lot can change. I think Dennis Gates is another name that I've heard relatively frequently mentioned with this opening. Obviously, very qualified. He's done an incredible job flipping Cleveland State. I don't think people remember that Cleveland State had 4 scholarship players at Peach Jam time 2 years ago. And now they're, won the league this year and might go to the NCAA tournament. He has turned this thing around quick, could get them some players right away. And obviously he can really, really coach. So those are 2 names that really jump out. I think you'll hear Mark Schmidt, obviously, then he'll get buzzed more for BC, but I think Penn State is a real option for him as a guy who, is relatively familiar with that region. Coached at Robert Morris before St. Bonaventure. It's a good time for him to move up after winning the A-10 for the first time. They're probably an NCAA tournament team this year. And again, a guy who can really, really coach, and inheriting a good situation too at Penn State where there's some talent already there would be beneficial for him. Other names you can see Sadie Washington potentially on the Michigan staff. He's due for a job. He could try to get in there. A lot of mid-major names. I know Jeff Borzello floated Travis DeCuire from Montana, which is a little bit outside the box, but that's a guy who I believe worked at Cal the same time Sandy Barber, the AD at Penn State, worked at Cal, so there's a connection there. But guys like him, John Becker, et cetera, are all worthy of any job in that region consideration for the jobs that they've done. But I think Shrewsbury and Dennis Gates are the 2 names we hear the most.
Do we want to switch to Fordham? Let's stay out east and talk a little bit about Fordham hoops. What are you hearing there, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird job, right? It's, the worst job in the A-10. They haven't won in forever. The last time, they started to turn it around under Pecora, and they kind of cut him short too early. They lose Eric Paschal, and all of a sudden you're just kind of stuck in a rut. They've had so many transfers out. The resources aren't great compared to the rest of the league. But at the same time, I continue to hear really strong interest in this job from mid-major coaches in the Northeast, sitting head coaches who want that job. Because A, it's the A-10, B, it pays well, and C, if you turn this thing around, if you were the one wwho, you don't even have to get Fordham to the NCAA tournament. You get Fordham to, mid-pack of the A-10, people are going to act like you're God, it would be an unbelievable turnaround. So Shaheen Holloway and Jared Grosso are the 2 names that will buzz the most for sure. Shaheen Holloway, coming from St. Peter's, has done an incredible job there. Worked for Kevin Willard at Seton Hall. Also would be worth watching Grosso, who was actually the interim head coach at Fordham for a year. Obviously was a huge part of the Iona staffs with Tim Kluse that won so many MAC titles and now has really revamped Bryant's program and turned them into an NEC power really quickly. So those are two big names, but I think Matt Langle from Colgate is a guy you could watch. Carm Massarello at Siena could get in the mix if you wanted it. I think he'd probably stay at Siena, but a guy who could get in there. You can see some assistants as well, like Kyle Neptune from Villanova would be an attractive candidate. And then keep an eye out. From what I understand, their search firm likes to take some big swings. So there's been some floating around. Okay, well maybe they could swing at Steve Lavin or Fran Fraschilla, two guys who've been now in TV, but have been in the city and coached at big programs in the city. Both former St. John's coaches. Fraschilla won big at Manhattan. I don't think that's the route they'll wind up going, but it's at least worth monitoring as something that could transpire beyond just the traditional names you're going to hear there.
Yeah, a couple other names that I've heard that I'll just throw into the mix as well. Both from the St. John's staff, actually, Van Macon and Steve DeMayo.
Yeah.
Coach DeMayo obviously is a New York guy that has had tons of success as a head coach at the junior college level at Northwest Florida, at Monroe Community College. He's helped turn that St. John's program around, as well as Van Macon, who's also on that staff, also a New York guy from Queens, who spent time in the A-10 at St. Louis when Travis Ford, I think first got there and got that program established. So two more names I can throw into the hat there.
I'll just toss in one more name who probably should get more looks than he's going to get. Rob Jones at Norfolk State, a guy who is from New York City. He's done an incredible job there, wins big every year. I think at Fordham, you need a guy who's understood how to win at a tough place, right? And that's why I think Shaheen Holloway makes a lot of sense, because he's won at St. Peter's, which is a really tough place to win. Rob Jones, he knows how to grind and build something up, right? And this is not going to be an easy rebuild at Fordham. And so I think for that reason, he'd be a guy that I would consider there without a doubt. And obviously a New York City guy who it would mean a lot to him to get a job like that. So that'd be another name I'd toss out there.
Good stuff. All right. Tell us about, you're in Chicago, right? You're an Illinois guy. So let's move there and talk about Northern Illinois. I've heard they're in their final round of interviews and something will pop here shortly.
Yeah, I think they will be ready to go pretty quick here. There's a reason they moved early, right? They're coached in the last year of his contract. There have been a lot of coaches in the last year of their contract. They've coached out the year. NIU didn't let Mark Montgomery do that, which makes you think they wanted to get started. And a name I heard mentioned was Ryan Humphrey, Notre Dame. I don't think he winds up being the guy who gets the job, but I heard he was in the mix. Here's a name I would go after. It would be Chin Coleman from Illinois. Coming off a great year, tied to the region. Similar to what Rob Jeter and staff have done at Western Illinois, where they're able to bring in a lot of Chicago kids. I think Chin Coleman could do a similar thing and bring some kids in from Chicago high schools and play at NIU, which would be very appealing to NIU administration. It's not, it isn't Chicago. Like it's definitely not, nowhere close to being in Chicago, and people, it's kind of the middle of nowhere, and it's not an easy job, quite frankly. The MAC is a really good league, and NIU doesn't have great resources, but at the same time, I think, a lot of high major assistants, guys like Chin Coleman, like Armand Gates from Nebraska, who's on the, who's a Chicago guy. Those guys I think would be pretty appealing for a place like NIU.
Brian, you got any other names for NIU?
Yeah, I love the Chin Coleman one, just because he is a Chicago guy. Definitely love the idea of, getting a high major assistant that kind of knows. He was at UIC, had success there too, and has done a great job. And I think this is a different one of those jobs that you need somebody who's going to be able to roll his sleeves up and be able to grind and kind of be innovative, but be able to get some really good recruits in there to kind of make it exciting again. So I think similar to what I'll take from LMU, Stan Johnson has done, kind of being in that Marquette private school, went to LMU and has provided some energy around that program. I think Chin would do a great job doing the same with Northern Illinois. So I'd stick with that, or going with the Gates brothers since Dennis is so hot. We'll stick with Armand. He could be great too.
Yeah, I think. Wait, did you say Dennis Gates for Northern Illinois?
No, his brother.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, because I was going to say Cleveland State's probably a better situation, especially the way it is now. I haven't heard a ton here. Just two guys that I'd take a stab at. Cornell Mann at Missouri, who's Mr. Michigan, right? And right there on the border. He'd be fantastic. Obviously, Missouri's having a great year this season. Not that that matters. I know it does to ADs, I guess, in the press conference.
Timing matters.
Yeah, but isn't that stupid, though? You could have like a great 20-year career, and then like the year you need to have a good year, you win 10 games, and all of a sudden – anyways. And then I doubt they would do this, but like I'd be on the phone with Jim Christian. He's won a lot in the MAC at 2 different programs. And obviously he's out of a job. I don't know that he'd do it. I think Northern Illinois is probably one of the lower tier jobs in that conference. So he's been at the upper echelon of that conference and has done very well. But shoot, that would be a home run if
I wouldn't rule that out, quite frankly. I know I can't say a name, but I know they back channeled another former high major coach. It's not going to happen. But they were interested in a kind of similar mold type hire. And I could see them being interested in Jim Christian, and Jim Christian's a ball coach. Like he wants to be out there and coach. And so it wouldn't stun me. I mean, I think maybe he would want a better MAC job. Maybe it's not the way they go, but if you could pull a Jim Christian, why not? I mean, that would be a heck of a hire.
Yeah. I think that's kind of one of those, as guys are in the free agent coaching portal, so to speak, them sneaking into some of these jobs because they're not usually the guys that are mentioned. And, I can think of Rick Barnes when he lost his job at Texas and got hired at Tennessee. We see how that's worked out. There's been plenty of others, but definitely those guys that maybe are in that portal that may not be in there long would be great hires. But before we let you go, Kev, I wanted to pick your brain on Portland. I know we've talked a little bit about it. I've heard David Patrick, who I think would be a innovative. Portland's probably regarded as one of the worst jobs in that league. But you need somebody who's creative.
Brian, these job rank Portland the worst job in the league.
It's regarded as that. His reputation.
It's tough to walk into right now. Too. Like they've been so bad.
And I say worst. To be honest, Pacific is usually regarded as the worst, but Damon Stoddamer has changed that perception. Portland's right there with it at the bottom. It's a pretty good league. I'm sure you knew that, Adam. But
it is.
But David Patrick, I think, will be great. He's already proven he can win as a head coach. So many ties to Australia. He's as good a recruiter as there is. I think he would just be able to do an outstanding job of just bringing life and energy. And, he's a heck of a coach. So I think he's one name that would be one to look at. But I know there's many others. But to me, the David Patrick makes sense because he's not just going to recruit that area. I think people talk about, like, we need a guy who's from this Pacific Northwest. It's like, I mean, you're not getting the best players in Pacific Northwest there. They're going to Gonzaga or Pac-12 or wherever. So I think you have to get somebody who's going to be willing to grind, roll the sleeves up, be creative, recruit JUCO, international, wherever, and just get it done. So to me, he fits.
Yeah, I mean, the one name that I'll throw out there that I think is a very likely candidate here is Shante Lagans from Eastern Washington. He has a step up in league. Eastern Washington's fund, budget isn't huge. It would be a step up there as well. This guy who's won big there, coming off the Hayford era, he's kept it going. And also has recruited, a variety of guys. They've recruited in the Pacific Northwest some guys that are, under the radar, kids from Spokane, kids from California, Oregon, et cetera. They also, went to Australia, took a couple kids from there, to Canada, and got a kid from there. So they've been able to recruit, the way that I think you need to recruit at a place like Portland. Runs a really good offense. I'm trying to pull their KenPom numbers right now, but I think at one point last year they were like top 100 in offense in KenPom. Let's see if I can find it. They're 66 right now in KenPom offense. They run really good stuff and fire away from deep. So I think they play fast, which would be appealing as well. I mean, I think to get a sitting head coach with experience, especially after a guy who had pretty much no experience when they hired him in Porter, I think would be really logical. And he's a guy that I would definitely be looking out for there. Obviously, some assistants like Carlin Hardman would be an interesting guy to call there. Adam Cohen would be another really good guy to call there, but I think Shante would be a really good fit. And I would say probably the favorite for this job at this point.
So I'm curious before I let Adam jump in. Travis DeCuire you mentioned for, I believe it was
Penn State.
Fordham, Penn State. So he's probably had the most success in that conference. Would he fit as well as a guy like Liggins? I know Liggins is hot now, but I'm curious if you thought Travis, they're not having as good of a year as maybe they hope to. I'm just curious with as much as he's won in that conference and in that region.
I mean, I think Montana is a lot better job than EWU. So I think that's one of the things you keep play. It doesn't mean that he wouldn't take it. Like Travis has been in the mix for a bunch of different jobs. Like got his name thrown out Evansville a couple years ago. But Evansville, I mean, Valley Jazz Pay. Like I don't know. I think it's possible. I think it doesn't help. You know, you're coming off a tough year. Like they've had a tough year this year compared to what they've done in the past.
Right.
I would guess this isn't the job for him. But I mean, if they could get him, I mean, I would, I'd walk over there and sign him myself. That'd be a dynamite hire if you're Portland.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's hard because Montana is top 2 jobs according to Adam Gordon in the Big Sky. So it's just hard to leave that. You know what I mean? If you're the top dog in your conference, it's really hard to walk away from that. Right. Especially for something like, a job like Portland, which is challenging. Although I do want to shout out Eric Ravenel at Georgia Tech, who did a great job as a head coach of Portland and proved that you can win consistently there and at a high level. But obviously you're in the West Coast Conference. You're going up against Gonzaga and St. Mary's. One thing I've heard, their AD, is interested in hiring a small college head coach. It's something he did on the women's side last year. He hired a Division II coach who had a lot of success and instantly turned that program around. So I've heard that, from the beginning that was something he was interested in. And 2 names that have popped up, Jim Shaw completely fits that bill and on paper seems like a home run. I don't know Jim Shaw at all, but he's an assistant at Washington State. This dude's won everywhere. Before Washington State, he got there in 19. He was at Western Oregon for 4 years. Got him to number 1 in the country. They were 102-30. They went to the Final Four. He had a ton of success. Before that was at St. Mary's and won there with Randy Bennett. Before that, he was at Washington where he won 5 Pac-12 championships with Romar when they were rolling. He was at Oklahoma with Calvin Sampson. Won 3 Big 12 titles. Won a Pac-12 title at Oregon State. Who wins a Pac-12 title at Oregon State? And he was at Portland back in the 90s, I guess, in their heyday. They had a really good run there. So Jim Shaw seems like a great fit on paper. Another guy on that D2 mold, Matt Logie. Is it Logie or Logie? You guys know that?
I've heard that name. I've heard that name, surprisingly, too.
Apologies to Matt for butchering your name on national television here. But he's the head coach at Point Loma, and he's been extremely successful there. Before that, he was at Whitworth for 8 years, where he won 6 conference championships, 7 NCAA tournaments. So yeah, Matt. Logie. I just got a text. It's Logie. Sorry, Matt.
Here's a good selling point with him: he is the guy who recruited CJ McCollum to Lehigh.
Yes, that's right.
Which is a really nice sell in Portland right now. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, I was actually just about to say that. I like that you're on your game right there, Kevin.
I know. That's
impressive. I'm always there, baby.
A couple other names that I've heard that I'll just mention as well. Danny Sprinkle, the head coach of Montana State, and Scott Goose Garson at Santa Clara. So both of those guys are fantastic. And, the one thing with this Portland search, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I will, like the AD keeps giving updates in the paper about like what's going on with the search. Anytime that happens, like it just makes me nervous. Yeah. He also mentioned that he had a list of 30 people that he was like interviewing or calling, and that's a lot. So it just makes me nervous. I wish them the best. I'm sure he's got it under control. And the names we've mentioned are all great. But it's just weird to see that stuff in the paper, right?
I mean, hey, I think the thing is, like, if you can get newspaper buzz in Portland as, Portland basketball, you got to do it, right? Like, I mean, that's probably what it is, honestly. It's like, we can create some buzz, but like, that's
the media guy likes it
about your search. Yeah.
Yeah, no question. Well, Kevin, hey man, this has been fun. I really enjoy you hanging out with us today. You're welcome to stick around if you want. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. We appreciate you being on the first episode.
Yeah, man, it was fun. Yeah, how about we do some other time, another week? We'll get me back on, and I'll give some updates when I'm here.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Kevin Sweeney from College Basketball Central and Sports Illustrated just got the promotion, so congrats to Kevin. Great insight. He is. Brian, he's on it. I threw out a curveball, and he was right there.
That's what he does. That's what he does. I think he kind of like sits at his laptop more or less all day long, or his phone, and he's just always on it. His motor runs high. That's
why he's good at what he does. What's next? Should we talk New Mexico, Brian?
Yeah. Let's talk New Mexico. I can let you lead this one, and then I'll kind of jump in from there.
Yeah, I got nothing. I haven't heard much. The one that I've heard a few names float around. I don't know, how much truth there is to it, but Cody Topper is a guy who's really highly respected. He's got ties to the school. I think his
brother played there.
Yeah, I think his brother, maybe his mom or dad too. So he's fantastic. One of the sharpest dudes in the game. But what about you? Who have you heard?
I like that name. I don't know that this is the one for Cody to get, but I love the fact that his name's starting to get out there for head coaching. He was obviously a G League head coach, doing a great job at Memphis. He'll be a great head coach when his time comes. So the New Mexico one, the biggest rumor is usually Frank Martin, right? Which Frank Martin has a job. So I'll say it only because I believe Frank Martin's going to stay, but people love talking about that one. He has ties to the AD. Damon Stoddamer is a name that's been mentioned. Obviously, Dame would be fantastic. He's probably done as much as you can do as far as winning at a place like Pacific that is almost an impossible job. And when he inherited, was on probation and had all these different limitations and things that they had to go up against, and just done an unbelievable job. And obviously was an elite level NBA player and is a great guy. Tim Miles is a name that people talk about a lot, had a lot of success at Colorado State, has been out of it this year and last year. Did a good job in Nebraska. They had high expectations, but he's going to win wherever he goes. I don't know if this is the one for him or if this is the fit, but his name's been mentioned a lot, and it seems like one that could make sense. Couple of dark horses from the Southland Conference. Kyle Keller's name's been mentioned. He's had great success. They beat Duke last year. He's got an NCAA tournament appearance. Joe Golding has been a guy who's been mentioned actually by Kevin quite a bit as a guy who makes sense from just a coaching standpoint and just being able to make that next jump. The real scoop I got this morning and late last night was that it sounds like the AD is really going to lean on Billy Donovan because of their relationship. Has two guys on staff that are connected to Billy Donovan, and Scott Padgett and their other assistant, who was at Eastern Kentucky at one point in time. So those guys are tied to Billy D as well, it sounds like. And it just sounds like that there may be someone that he would be close to or that he would prefer to have in that position that the AD may be leaning on. So I have heard of a high major head coach that's currently in a job. I won't speak on the name. Maybe the one sliding over to get that job. But it'll be interesting to see. New Mexico is regarded as a top 2 or 3 job in that league, has an enormous tradition, facilities, fan base, you name it. So definitely a place where you could get it going. And I think you may have even mentioned a former New Mexico guy and Marvin Menzies as well.
I mean, not that I've heard that name, but that's who I would go after. I mean, Marvin Menzies had such a dominant run at New Mexico State. And honestly got a raw deal at UNLV. Did it end in controversy or something? Because he was only there 3 years and he won a decent amount. Like, not that he wasn't killing it, but he had a 20-win season in there. I don't remember what happened.
Hard job. UNLV, hard job.
Yeah, UNLV's hard. I don't remember. Maybe there was something. I don't think there was, though. But Marvin Menzies is a guy that I'd be calling up and trying to get over there. I think the names that you all mentioned make perfect sense. I like all those guys, especially the Southland coaches. Those guys would both be great there.
Yeah, they're making that move to the WAC, and so that's appealing to them. But, the part about New Mexico that's a little different is, they didn't get to play games in their home gym this year. They kind of had to play out of state because of the government stuff. And, there's some stuff about maybe there's some financial, they're not quite the same position they've been. But regardless, New Mexico is a really good job. Whoever gets it is going to have a great opportunity to do some great things in that league because it's got such a great tradition in their fan base and the way they love basketball, even being at UTEP and being at Fresno and playing against those guys. I mean, New Mexico is a heck of a job. So whoever gets it is going to be in a good position to do some good things.
Brian, is that all the D1 jobs open?
I think it might be. I don't know. Did I give my Texas State rant yet? I don't think I did.
No, you didn't. Talk to us about Texas State.
So I think that the whole basketball world is excited for Isaac Brown, right? He got named full head coach, got a 5-year contract. Anytime you're interim, it's extremely hard. We talk about getting fired is hard in this business. Anytime you get interim tag, it's extremely hard to win because your players, were they with you, are they not with you, are they thinking about whatever it may be, there's all these stuff around it. Every day you're trying to figure out, am I going to get the job? And to win a championship under those circumstances, and you're moving from assistant to head coach, which is really hard to do. So credit to Isaac Brown. They went first. They did what they should have done. He got the full-time head coaching position, took off the interim tag. Texas State is now Sun Belt champions. It's the first championship they've won, I believe, in 22 years. They're 12-3 in league. Terrence Johnson was already regarded as one of the top assistants in the league, has done an unbelievable job. And we talked about this when me and him talked just the other day. They lost to an NAI early in the year, and it's like, okay, this guy's not going to get the job done. He's not the guy. And then to rally those guys to win a Sun Belt championship when you have great coaches in that league and you're picked 5th, I just think they should hire him. It should be done. Whether they do anything else this season or not, he needs to be the head coach. He's a loved guy in the state, and everyone's behind him. So had to give my spiel. TJ Johnson needs to get hired by Monday.
No brainer. No, I don't even know.
No brainer.
No brainer.
Yeah, get it done.
Okay, we got a few more minutes here. We want to talk a little small college hoops. We're certainly not elitists over here. So let's mix in, some small college stuff. Probably the best small college job open, and arguably one of the best junior college jobs in the country is Northwestern Florida State. Butch Pierre stepped down, citing family issues. It's a great job in a great challenging league in the Panhandle. Certainly, on paper, the guy that you got to think is the first look is Jake Williams, the head coach at Dodge City. He's done a really good job there in his first year. But before that, took USC Salkehatchie. Let me say that again. Took USC Salkehatchie. Nobody does that. He had a super successful run there. I think maybe 3-4 years at Salkehatchie, winning 25 plus games. Really impressive. And obviously he was an assistant at Northwest Florida under Steve DeMayo. You got to think they'll be calling Steve and picking his brain for who's next. But a couple other guys that, I would think would be up for it or would be wise to reach out to. Tim Ryan, obviously the Hall of Famer who was at College of Central Florida before they had to shut down their program. He's now coaching in Mississippi. Just got there this past year, but I'm sure a job like Northwest Florida, you got to think that'd be something, anyone would jump at that chance. And then another guy, Jeremy Schulman, what he's done at Eastern Florida, turning that into a national powerhouse. That was never, that was a good program, but it was never at that national level.
Right.
He's done there. Over a long 10 years, been super impressive, and they've started to cut budget. They lost an assistant coach position last year. I think they lost some funding in other areas. I don't know that for a fact, but look for him to possibly make that jump as well.
Yeah, I don't know all the guys you mentioned. I just know Jeremy Shulman, like you said, has just really done. Anyone that knows JUCO basketball, anyone that knows Florida JUCO basketball, he's done as incredible of a job as anyone in the country here in recent years. Almost won a national championship at College of Eastern Florida. So to me, he would be the first call if I'm the AD, just because he's already been right there and had enormous success at a place that doesn't have all the resources and tradition that Northwest Florida does. So for me personally, I would say he's got to be a guy that's, to me, should be his job to turn down almost, just because he's been that good, in my opinion. And that's what Northwest Florida wants to do. They want to be able to win national championships. That's what they've kind of their tradition, and they want to be one of the best in the country. So to me, you just go right down the state lines and pick up the phone, call them, offer them the job. Let's get it done.
What about Oklahoma City University, one of the historically best NAIA powerhouses in the country? What are you hearing for that one, Brian?
Yeah, actually, I was able to connect on a couple phone calls on this. It's not what it's been, unfortunately, the perception. So a lot of Division I guys are already calling coaches in that league to kind of try to figure out what they need to do, who they need to talk to. So it's definitely still got the same buzz from the Division I ranks of guys that, and I'm sure there's probably others, but guys as high as Division I assistants still have interest. But 2 years in a row, they have let the coach go middle of the season. So that doesn't really give you a lot of excitement to say, I want to follow that. For different reasons, I won't get into all that, but it's happened 2 years in a row. They've had 4 head coaches in 3 years, which is also not a great sign of the same tradition that they once had, winning championships. And they do not have a full-time assistant, it sounds like, so that's different. They've cut some budget, and it sounds like they may even have less scholarships than they normally have had. So still a really competitive league, probably maybe arguably the best NAIA league in the country. A lot of top 25 programs in that league. So it's not easy on that sense, but something there is not quite as great as it's been, but still another job that I'm sure guys, if you get in there, the last coach that's really had success, Vinay Patel, got in there, rolled his sleeves up. He was a grinder, went on and got a Division II job, and he's doing well there too. So it can be done there still. It's just not quite the sexy job that it once was.
Yeah, and their AD, Jim Abbott, is a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. So I have no doubt that he'll make a great hire with that job and get it back on track. I don't think they've had a huge dip in the win column, I don't think. Have they? Like,
yeah,
even
they have
3 years, they've still won, haven't they? I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, they haven't really won the same way just because they've kind of had, again, all this and 4 coaches in 3 years. You got guys that are getting let go in the middle of the season. Yeah. There's just been a lot of stuff going on there. And it's not a knock to the school or the AD or anything like that. It's just for whatever reason, that's just what it's been. So they definitely probably want to get somebody there who's going to be able to get some stability and get it back nationally ranked where they have been prior.
All right, what else we got, Brian?
You mentioned you got a Clayton State that you wanted to maybe mention. I don't know as much about that job. I know it's an open job that people have even reached out to me already about to just see what's going on around it. Do you know anything around it? This job is a pretty good job. So I don't know a lot about the job. I just know that it's one that people are buzzing about because it's one of the early ones that's open, and it sounds like it's a job people think you can win at.
Yeah, and it is a good job. It's in a very good conference. But, you know, it's there in Georgia. They have had success in the past. So, I mean, there's a lot of attractive things about it. I don't know. I don't have any scoop or breaking news for you on like who's involved or anything like that. But I do think they'll get somebody great in there, whether that's, you know, a Division I assistant, a sitting head coach at the Division II level. I mean, it's a good opportunity. The Peach Belt, like I said, one of the better Division II leagues in the country, which comes with its challenges for sure. But definitely will be interesting to see what happens there. I've gotten hit up about that one too. I don't know why. People think I got better. But people have been calling me like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, how do I? Like, I don't know, man. Apply online. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there for sure. Any other jobs that you guys want to talk about as you guys listen? I know this is our first one. We're getting used to how this thing goes. But reach out to us throughout the week. We'll be doing this every Thursday. And obviously every Thursday this time of year. We're going to have 15 new jobs to talk about.
It's going to be bananas. It's going to be bananas. The carousel doesn't stop.
Yeah, and I just got a text right before we went on air. I'm not going to say the specific school because, again, we don't talk about the hot seat or anything like that. But I heard there may be a change at a Power 5 today. So at a big one. So we'll see if that actually happens or not. If it does, we'll be talking about it next week on the air. And again, there's there's going to be a lot more. There's also a lot more starting to pop open on the women's side. So we'll be diving into those as the carousel begins to spin a little bit faster here in the month of March.
Yeah, kind of just I had some numbers before, but I think last year was a slower year because of the pandemic. On average, there's about between 50 and 60 jobs, Division I head jobs that are usually open per offseason. I think right in the middle 50s. I would imagine, I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to be a makeup for last year, but I would imagine it's going to be closer to the average, and people are going to be more willing to figure out how to be creative to get the people in they want to have, because college basketball is continuing to go, the NCAA tournament's going, whether the pandemic stays, goes, whatever. It seems like people are going to make decisions based on what may be best for their institution. And even though finances may be tied into it, it just seems like it's still going to get to that 50 range, because like a lot of things, once people see other schools doing it, it kind of becomes, oh, you guys are getting rid of your coach, or you guys are changing coaches, or you guys are deciding to make that hard decision. Well, maybe we can do ours after all. So I think it's going to be one of those kind of off seasons, me personally.
Yeah, it's an interesting deal, right? Because, if you make a move in this off season, you're judging someone, if it's something that has been like years coming,
right,
that everybody expects to happen. Like, no disrespect to this program, but like Jeff Neubauer getting let go at Fordham was not a shock. That was one that, it's been years, in the making. But unless it's an obvious deal, it's hard to judge someone off a COVID year. This season's been unreal.
Yeah, it's probably the hardest college basketball season that we will ever see, right? Because it's all this unknown. The first time we've ever had to do all these protocols and testing and canceling of games and freestyle scheduling of like, hey, we got to go on pause for this long. I mean, all this is probably the hardest mental year. However, like you said, I think there's a lot of people that maybe got a pass, that maybe could have lost jobs or could have made a change last offseason that didn't. And then you get that extension of like, okay, let's see what they do this year. But like a lot of schools, they don't necessarily want to stay in a certain position of not winning the way they hope to for very long, because they think they're looking at everybody else that may be having success. And I think that's the hardest part about coaching during this time is like they're giving out some passes, but at the end of the day, it's such a bottom line business, man. People, these organizations, these schools, the money that's being put in, they want to see a winner, or they want to see their competitive side that they hope to see. So
no question. The other thing we'll get into on this show, as the carousel, I keep bringing it back, as the carousel begins to spin faster,
I like it.
Some assistant coaching movement. We'll get into that. Yep. We'll get into what jobs. I mean, that's the thing that I hated when I was coaching Brian is like, dang, like you feel like you're working with Secret Service trying to figure out what jobs are actually open to even know what to go after. So hopefully we can solve that problem a little bit. We can share that info. And I get it. When you're in it, you're trying to keep that stuff secret to give yourself an edge and protect your reputation. But like I said at the beginning, me and Brian don't coach anymore, so we can say whatever. We're going to blow up the lid on the whole thing.
No doubt. And I guess they can't really fire us here, so we're good.
Exactly right.
I think that's the hard part about the business is so much information, so much different buzz. It's like, where do you go to get more scoop of, just a little bit of a heads up so you can kind of chase the dominoes? Because it's usually not what you're going to hear on this podcast or what you read on a blog. It's usually the domino that affects that you're going to try to get ahead of, right? Like a lot of times by the time it hits certain things, it's like it's already happened. So you got to be able to chase the dominoes of, okay, that guy's leaving here, so I can connect to here. And, that is the carousel.
Absolutely right. Well, Brian, man, I enjoyed it. It was fun talking.
Got one in the books, man. We got one in the books.
Absolutely. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Like we said, we want this to be interactive. We loved the comments that we got today, both on the private line, via text, and a few that poured in on social media. Hope you guys will join us. We'll be here all off season Thursdays at 12 Eastern. So grab your lunch. If you're on the East Coast, if you're on the West Coast, get another cup of coffee and witness the carousel unfold.
No doubt. And if they don't see it live, where else can they see it? Right, YouTube.
Yeah, perfect. Great.
Podcast. I'll let you plug that.
Yeah. So if you missed the live stream, no problem. If you don't want to watch it, if you're driving, you want to listen to it in the car. All of this will be released via podcast on Spotify, iTunes, all the major podcast providers. So just search the Carousel. Make sure you subscribe. Leave us a review, 5 stars only, please. And yeah, we appreciate you guys' time and willingness to jump on this journey with us.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
Yep. Final thing, if you visit again, just one last plug here for Lucio Sports. If you sign up for Rising Coaches membership now, it's $120 a year to become a member, and you will with that membership, you will receive free access to Lucio Sports products, including their virtual playbook, the ability to animate plays, their Sessions app, which allows you to log and chart player development. Really some great tools. So check it out, luciosports.com, and sign up at risingcoaches.com for a membership and your free license. Thanks, everybody.